Does anybody else feel like their IQ plummets when other people are watching you do something? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, does anybody else randomly check their bank account just to make sure money is still there? Maybe I'm paranoid, but I'll literally check my balance like 3 times a day just to confirm there's no glitch in the matrix. Like, it's not even because I'm worried about spending it, just need that visual confirmation that money is still there. Been doing this way more since I had some recent big money come in, so I put some money on my savings. Like, I'll be brushing my teeth and suddenly think if that transaction is done, and boom. There I am refreshing my banking app at 11 p.m. like some kind of financial maniac. The worst part is when the app takes forever to load, and I'm sitting there having an existential crisis for 30 seconds thinking my money went to loss. It's giving me anxiety vibes, but also like banks are sketchy and technology is weird, so maybe I'm just being smart. Plus, with all the horror stories about people getting their accounts drained by some dude named Kyle with a laptop, I'm not to blame for doing it. My friends joke around, but joke's on them because I'm the only one who knows exactly where my money is at all times. I gotta be honest, I'm putting it out there. This question imposes some secondhand anxiety on me. I know it is really irresponsible and it's really not what I should do, but I hate to directly look at my finances. There's just kind of like a icky, nervous feeling when you go back and you see the number went down a little bit because, surprise, you're paying for bills or whatnot. Or you're like me and I'm buying some frivolous thing and I don't want to see it hit my account because it's not fun. So I guess I would say I'm kind of the opposite of OP. Global Avocado commented, opposite. I play this fun game where I guesstimate till my card declines. I get a special prize if I say, this card might not work while swiping the card. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and this is a new subreddit we're trying out called Does Anybody Else? If you're vibing with it, let me know down in the comments. If you think it's trash, well, let me know that too. That said, our next story is, does anybody else think social media is dying? I'm a 28-year-old guy. I grew up with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, never had a MySpace or AIM, but obviously I was around for it. I feel like I've lived during a time when it was the golden age for those websites. But after COVID, all of those websites are totally different and just not the same. It's mainly advertisements and crazy echo chambers, especially when it comes to politics on either Facebook or X, and the comment sections of Instagram are horrible. I know there's always been trolls, but people are 10 times crueler now. I also feel like there's so many bots everywhere, even here on Reddit. Advertising on everything is also very annoying. Even if you use AdBlock, it's the principle. And I'm just sick of everyone trying to freaking sell me something. Whether it's YouTube sponsors or TikTok shop commissions. I think back to the days you watch your favorite YouTuber and it was a great, straight to the point 5-minute video, but now it's stretched out to 15 minutes and halfway through they spend 5 minutes talking about today's video sponsor and end the video with, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I don't know, it's just all become very generic and disingenuous. Many channels I used to love have gone from being authentic to eventually recording essentially the same video again, just as an excuse to have a video to put a sponsor in. But anyway, that's me just rambling a bit. What got me thinking of this is the attempted shutdown of TikTok in the US. It's making me wonder if social media as a whole is slowly starting to become uncool. But then again, I'm getting older, so that could be why I feel that way. I think capitalism is to blame here. Once all these platforms become a place that could be heavily monetized, it was game over. Frequent ads, bots, certain political narratives being pushed, etc. At one time, social media was once mainly for people to connect with each other, and it still is that to some degree, but now it's more for brands promoting their businesses. Anyone else feel this way? I'm actually excited for it if what I'm saying is true. I miss the feeling of not being glued to my phone. I know, ironically, I'm here typing on Reddit, but this and YouTube are my only social medias. I deleted my Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and X apps from my phone a couple of months ago, and it's honestly amazing how much better I feel. It's weird I feel like a kid again. My main priority and focus is on myself and those around me in the present moment, and it feels freeing. Maybe we really do need to touch grass more often. So in regards to my take, a couple of things kind of come to mind in regard to what OP's posing here. One is kind of the simple thing of everything in moderation. Problem is, it feels like the majority of the world are not going to use social media in moderation. but it is nice to be able to connect with like-minded people, which that also comes with its own set of horrendous caveats. The other part that came to mind is there's definitely a bit more of a dead internet theory vibe going on, which is that theory where most if not all traffic that you see on the internet is actually fake botted engagement and whatnot. There's bots, there's spam, there's ads. A lot of the time I'm clueless about it. People let me know in my comments multiple times that I accidentally included a story with an advertisement for a gambling website in it, and for the longest time I didn't realize people would go on these subreddits and post stories solely as a fake ad to shill their gambling website. Portsighted commented, "I was in my 20s when MySpace had its heyday. I never had an account there. Then Facebook took off and everyone was making accounts. I joined the bandwagon and was amazed to connect with so much family and friends, both current and past, all in one place. The site was simple and basic and not overrun with ads or bots or garbage pages. Everyone was active on it. Also realized that at this time, smartphones were barely coming onto the scene, so Facebook was mostly used on desktops or laptops. Today when I log in, the vast majority of what scrolls down my wall is garbage. 90% of my friends and family don't post anything anymore or have completely abandoned their accounts. My feed is a combination of community pages I've joined, but the content is repetitive, ads and suggested drivel that contain a ton of AI crap and rage bait aimed at angry boomers. So mostly nothing important, and a lot of it is a total waste of time. I miss what Facebook was 15 years ago." Cortex of Metaland Gear commented, "I think social media peaked a while ago, but more importantly, I think we as a species are just not meant to know everything about everyone. It takes away from actually getting to know people and leaves no room for nuance or context." Our next story is, does anyone else feel like the world has been not quite right since the pandemic? On the surface, everything has returned to status quo. Well, besides prices, but experientially, the world hasn't felt quite right since then. Maybe I've just grown up and become more disillusioned, but it seems that people, generally speaking, have become more conspiratorial, less tolerant. I was expecting people to come out of the pandemic with increased empathy. Everything is politicized, mental health is worse than ever despite the awareness campaigns. There have been some major family rifts among people who, prior to COVID, were willing to set aside any ideological differences for the sake of familial harmony. The dating landscape, especially online dating, absolutely shifted for the worst following the pandemic, and that shift is undeniable to almost anyone who was using dating apps beforehand. People seem to become more selfish and lazy and less genuinely interested in getting to know one another. Prices have remained high while service is worse than I remember it being, and generally there's a malaise in the air, like a sepia filter over everything. Nothing really feels fresh anymore. It could also be the effects of long COVID since it hit me hard and might have ended a few brain cells, or it could be depression, but I feel like it's something more external. Anyone else feeling this way? So I guess a good question here is it because of the pandemic? Or is it just kind of a reference point that you can say a lot of this stuff has happened past this point? That said, I do think there are some long-lasting ramifications that were caused by the pandemic. I mean, you think about how almost every kid had likely multiple years of their academics completely shifted around. Just in that regard, there has to be some level of impact, right? Maleficent Sun 3075 commented, "Absolutely. It's like society caught a bad cold, and even though it's over, there are those symptoms that just linger." Our next story is, does anybody else think wealthy people who don't pass down inheritance are crazy? I've noticed this mindset becoming increasingly popular, especially among certain wealthy circles, and honestly it baffles me how anyone arrives at this conclusion. The common argument, I don't want to spoil my kids, or they need to learn hard work and discipline. But this is completely backwards thinking. These things aren't mutually exclusive. You can raise disciplined, hard-working children while ensuring they're financially secure. It's called parenting. Plenty of wealthy families raise grounded kids, plenty of poor families raise entitled ones. What's the actual point of building wealth if not for your loved ones? You would rather your life's work benefit random strangers, bureaucrats, and institutional administrators than your own children? That's genuinely insane to me. You're deliberately making your children's lives harder for no reason. Having financial security doesn't ruin character, having lazy parents does. Give them a foundation and teach them values. Don't artificially create struggle because you bought into some weird guilt about success. The whole "I'm teaching them independence" thing feels like elaborate rationalization for what is fundamentally selfish behavior dressed up as virtue. You built enough wealth to ensure they're comfortable, or generational wealth, and you're choosing to end the generation with you. If I had substantial wealth, I would want my children to never experience financial stress. Most people's biggest struggles and anxieties stem from money worries. Not being able to afford healthcare, housing, education, or having a safety net during emergencies. Why would I want my kids to go through that when I have the power to eliminate those stresses entirely? I'd rather they focus their energy on pursuing meaningful work, relationships, and personal growth instead of worrying about things like making rent. So I myself have to say I'm kind of like down the middle on this one. I definitely believe that if I was well off, which trust me, I am not, I would never want my kids to struggle, but I feel like I would want them to want for some things. I would want to make sure that they're not going to stress, but also not coast, if that makes sense. Capital Strategy 371 commented, Warren Buffett said he's giving them some, but he isn't making them billionaires. They don't win the birth lottery. Very difficult for most people to lead a purposeful life if they're handed millions with no expectations and need to do anything. I suppose he could create a trust and make them earn incremental payments through accomplishments or service to others. Womp Womp Rats replied, Buffett famously said rich people should leave their kids enough money that they can do anything with their lives, but not so much that they can do nothing with their lives. Our next story is, does anyone else go through life feeling like a kid pretending to be an adult? I'm 39. I live alone, I pay all my own bills, I do all my own chores, I make my appointments and show up to them on time. My credit cards are all paid off, I take blood pressure medication, I have no fewer than 15 gray beard hairs and 3 or 4 gray hairs in another place. I've begun stretching my arm out to read smaller print. One of my parents is deceased and the other's in assisted living about to join her. I'm living life without a safety net. I still don't feel like a real grown-up. When I was in my 20s, I thought that feeling was normal and would go away, but it hasn't. I look at other people about my age, and I don't really see them as grown-ups either. A generation of 30 and 40-something children playing house. There is some element of the way our parents and grandparents lived that's been lost. Some intangible quality of adulthood they had and I don't. I have no idea what it is. I have to say I'm right there with OP. Like, generally speaking, I've grown a lot more, and also grown in some ways I'd rather not talk about, but like at my core, once I hit like 18, I don't feel like I really felt all that different in my head beyond that point. Don't get me wrong, I was stupid at 18, but I still kind of feel like in that ballpark, you know? I've heard people in their 60s, 70s, 80s and onward saying the same thing. Like, it's scary realizing that you are the adult now. Rainmaker291 commented, I asked a coworker, 50s, female, once if that feeling of I need an adult goes away. She said no. She said she also looks around for an adultier adult and remembers that she's that adult. We're stuck like this forever. Our next story is, does anyone else have parents with a social skills equivalent of a coconut? Primarily, I hate going to dinner with my mother. I've basically told her it's not happening anymore. She doesn't abide to social norms or expectations and severely lacks social skills in all respects. Notable anecdotes. Now, mind you, I only really started absorbing these habits when I became an adult, and it's extremely embarrassing to me. Mom, 56 years old, she'll hold her drink glass up really high until she gets a refill. She won't ask for one, she'll just hold it up. She'll ask to be seated by a wall outlet to plug in her phone charger, and she'll inspect the area to confirm one is there before sitting down. I tell her it's fine, she doesn't need to charge her phone and to not buy Temu chargers that constantly drain and kill her battery. She'll eventually concede. In conversation, she'll comment on someone's flaw, regardless of the circumstances of the conversation. Yes, and my new coworker at work, well, she's very heavy and she's having trouble adjusting to the new systems. Not relevant to the story kind of crap. She brings up her self-diagnosed diabetes in every conversation and blames all of her troubles on that. If the food seemed off, diabetes. Tired from watching TikToks all night, diabetes. She'll tell you all about it. Dad, 55 years old, more innocent and more introverted, he won't believe anything you tell him. It's kind of hard to explain. A waiter can tell him the soup of the day is chicken noodle and he just won't believe it and think they're upselling him. He'll then investigate it until he confirms it for himself. His primary focus in life is money, so if I ask him if I can bring the wife and kids by for a visit, he'll immediately bring up concerns about his dinner budget with my stepmom and not having enough food, simply assuming I wouldn't handle our family of 5. Does this with my sisters too. If a stranger talks to him when he's not expecting it, he'll ignore them in an extremely obvious way. He's tall, 7'3", and I think a lifetime of people commenting on his height is responsible for this one. When we went to Bass Pro Shop, a worker asked him if he was a rewards member. He stopped, stared at the kid, and turned 180 degrees and walked away from him. It's honestly hilarious to see. Now the big one for Dad, if his food is wrong, he'll walk it back to the kitchen himself and just freaks off back there and talks to the staff. I can't stress this enough. He doesn't get angry, he just invites himself to the kitchen and tells them what's wrong with his food. I've seen him bite into a burger, say, "I'll be right back," and walk away with his plate. My sisters and I have a group chat just calling out these occurrences and how badly they need therapy or something. Now, my parents may come off as jerks, but they really aren't. They're incredibly generous and friendly, they just have quirks. These are the same people that would give us lessons on how racism, looks, beliefs, etc. should be respected, and do only judge people by their actions. And I just don't get how that happens, and I have my mom telling me that Joanne at work has eyebrows the size of an aircraft carrier, and my dad will check out at Target and randomly tell the girl that all athletes should be in jail for steroids. Also, they don't understand movie plots. I can't explain that one either. Watched Titanic with my mom, and she said she couldn't follow along. Like a freaking boat died, Mom, that's it. I gotta stop, I could keep going. Does anyone else have similar experiences, or should I just cry myself to sleep? So, as far as my parents go, I don't know if I've had any that are that bad. I think some of the quirkiness that irked me is just taking a really roundabout approach to answering a simple question a lot of times, or something that says I got way too comfortable doing this at home and I don't even realize that I'm doing it in public now. Like, for example, one of them, and I'm not naming names, when they eat popcorn, they hate the little kernels that get stuck in your teeth. They have a habit of just straight up spitting them out, and it grosses me out and I'll call them out on it. Imagine my horror when I went to see a movie with them and I heard them next to me doing that in the movie theater. Just hear the occasional little makes me want to scream. Chelsea has commented, "Yeah, I just wouldn't go out to dinner with them anymore. My dad used to whistle to summon waitresses over, but as soon as we were old enough to understand how incredibly rude that is, me and my sisters beat it out of him. It's weird because he's a very kind and gentle man, and I've never seen him disrespect service workers outside of that." OP responded replying, "My dad's redeeming quality is he's an incredible tipper, minimum of $50 each time. I've seen a $250 tip on a $100 bill, so the waitstaff typically love him in the end." Our next story is, does anyone else get anxiety when they have to go outside and do lawn work because you know you're being watched? Every time I have to go outside to putter around in my yard, my anxiety kicks in. I live on a corner, so my property is wide open for everyone to watch. I'm not concerned about the cars driving past or the people out walking. I call them single-serving glancers. My neighbors next door are the ones who bother me the most because they'll actually sit at the window and stare outside. I had a tree cut down near the property line. It was my tree. The guy who climbed the tree said he was stressed out because the neighbors were sitting at their kitchen window watching him like a hawk. One time I sanded down my back deck and front porch. Anytime I moved from the front to the back of the house, the wife would follow me and watch. Since the husband is retired, I know he has nothing better to do now. When I worked at this one job, I would have to leave my house at around 4:30 a.m. and the husband would be standing in the kitchen watching me go to my garage. I have a detached garage, so imagine something from an 80s horror film of a fat silhouette standing in a doorway and watching you. It was 100% creepy as heck. There are other instances that I would rather not get into, but this is what I have to deal with. So when I say that going outside and raking leaves, mowing the lawn, watching my dog, etc. gives me anxiety, this is why. It's not paranoia, I think I'm being watched, I know I'm being watched, because they do very little to hide it. The only thing that helps me? Listening to my music, and once I'm outside and throwing myself into my task, I forget about everyone. I'm just curious if anyone else gets anxiety from having to do lawn work. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of right there with OP, and I don't know if that's a hot take. If I'm out in the yard and I need to do some lawn work or I break out the mower, I'm already the kind of person that is hyper aware of my surroundings and feeling like people are already watching me. Like, I'm the kind of person that doesn't linger around in the grocery store any more than I have to because I just hate the feeling of being observed. It's kind of funny to say that, and I have a YouTube channel, but something that especially gets in my head, I have a basketball hoop in my front yard. Most people these days have cameras in their front yard, so I'm imagining they can see me pretending like there's 3 seconds left on the clock and taking some horrendous fadeaway air ball. And in reality, they're probably not watching, but in my mind, it's like they are keeping an eye on me and they are laughing at me. They are begging for my downfall. It also hasn't helped that there's times when I looked at the roof or was outside talking to a sibling or something, and I can see my neighbor standing in their yard just watching me. Or they had a seat right up against the fence. You can't see them, but I could smell their cigarette smoke as they just sat there and listened in. Sugar Beats commented, "Yes, I do, mainly because I feel like I have to put a bra on." Our next story is, does anyone else live with their significant other but not share a room with them? My wife and I have been living with each other for the past 6 years. When we first moved in together before we were married, we tried sharing a same room with a same bed, which we quickly realized was not working out. She snores and has hypnagogic jerks in her sleep. Basically, her body randomly whacks out while she's sleeping due to sleep apnea, so it was keeping me awake. On top of that, her work schedule is all over the place, so sometimes she goes to bed at the same time as I do, and sometimes she stays up until 2 a.m. Whenever I tell people that we don't share a room, they can't seem to fathom it. People are totally convinced that we don't love each other or something simply because our sleep schedules and her sleep apnea keep us from being able to share a room or a bed. It can't be that uncommon, right? Edit regarding the sleep apnea, since people were concerned. She just got her official diagnosis a couple of weeks ago after I convinced her to go back to the sleep doctor. We're working on getting her a CPAP soon. Well, first of all, I'm glad that they got her tested and they're getting her a CPAP because sleep apnea is not something to play around with. I mean, if you don't treat sleep apnea, it is like a great contributor to just about every major bodily dysfunction. That said, I feel like I'm a kind of a fence sitter on this one. I think there's a lot of value and merit to having separate beds or even separate rooms to protect your sleep. I mean, I know people who do that. That said, myself, I do admittedly like the idea more so of sharing the same space and, cuddling, but it's just not realistic for everybody. Electric Sheepskin commented, "My husband and I have separate bedrooms and separate bathrooms. It took some getting used to, but we weren't sleeping well for various reasons, and there's nothing like good sleep to set you right. It's actually really, really nice, with a lot of bonuses we hadn't previously considered. We don't have to be on the same schedule. One of us can watch TV late at night if they want. If someone's sleeping and you want to have a shower, you don't have to worry about waking them. You can have your room decorated exactly the way you want, and you just have a little private space that's all yours. It's actually quite the luxury. You just have to be sure to maintain intimacy. With us, we always spend time in my bed at night before going our separate ways for sleep." Ironically, our next story is, does anyone else feel like you're passing away when you don't get enough sleep? I feel like I'm the only person on planet Earth who feels this way. I will legitimately feel like I'm either about to have a panic attack or like my body is physically legitimately shutting down and dying if I didn't get enough sleep the night before. 8 to 9 hours. If I have 7 or less, it's a wrap. I'm done. And it's not like, oh, I'm tired, kind of dead. It's like I'm convinced I'm on the verge of death. Then after a nap or the next day, I'm fine. I know everyone else brags about how little sleep they get and how they run on coffee, etc. Everyone's so busy, yeah, whatever, good for you. I basically diagnosed myself with mental disorders when I was tired just because I only had 6 hours of sleep. And if I got my 8 to 9 hours but the quality of it was bad, it's a wrap as well. I just want to know if there's anyone out there who feels this way because I've only ever come across people who are the opposite and say, I thrive off of 5 to 6 hours, blah 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 whatever. I just know I can't be the only one. I'm kind of with OP. I'm definitely the kind of guy that shuts down pretty hard if I didn't get enough sleep. If, for whatever reason, I did not get enough sleep, I wake up like a zombie. I am almost unresponsive. I'm basically like in a hardcore battery saver mode. And also, unfortunately, I'm a cranky absolute witch during that time too. It doesn't happen a lot, unfortunately, but when I have that 3 or 4 night stretch in a row where I slept about 9 hours, I'm honestly like a 9 to 10 hour guy, I start to begin to feel and believe that I could like build the next moon lander or something. Roadside Campion commented, yeah, like a racing heart, severe muscle weakness, body just feels like it's falling apart, stuff like that. I don't know if there's anything that can be done about it or not, or if it's common or not. OP responded, yes, this racing heart, extremely weak muscles, out of breath, etc. It's so crazy. How can being tired do all of that, I wonder? But nobody I know feels this way, which is weird. Everyone I know says that they feel fine with only 6 to 7 hours, and I'm a fairly healthy person. I eat my fruits and veggies and I'm fairly active, daily walks, active job, etc. So like, what is it? Our next story is, does anybody else ever feel deeply curious about the lives of complete strangers? Not in a nosy way, just this quiet, constant wonder. I'll be on a train, watching people come and go and suddenly think, what's it like to be them? What's their daily routine? Who do they text when something good happens? What kind of thoughts fill their head when they can't sleep? Sometimes I pass 2 people talking and try to guess the story between them. Are they in love or is it ending? Are they childhood friends, siblings, total strangers sharing a moment? Even walking past houses with the lights on, I catch myself wondering, who lives there? What's happening in there? What does it feel like to live that life in that space with those memories? It's not like I want to be someone else, it's more like I just want to understand, to know what it feels like to see the world through their eyes, even just for a second. You know, I don't know if I've ever addressed it with myself, but I feel like I wonder very similar things when I'm out driving and you just see car after car after car in your local area and you just see car after car after car. Where are all of these people going at this time? Where did they come from? Like, is there really that many people living in just this little area? Mauer Parkimmer commented, oh yes, absolutely. Especially when looking into a vaguely lit window when I'm on a passing train, for example. Coherent Busy Ducks responded, Sonder, noun. The feeling one has on realizing that every other individual one sees has a life as full and real as one's own, in which they are the central character and others, including oneself, have secondary or insignificant roles. Our next story is, does anyone else feel like their IQ drops 20 points whenever they know someone is watching them do a task? I don't know what it is, and I would like to think I'm not an idiot. However, if I know someone is watching me doing something, or even if they're nearby, I get nervous and then eventually start to mess things up. Especially at work, for example. If I'm by myself, I do a great job. I'm quick and efficient and do everything the way it's expected to be done. The second my boss or any higher up is nearby, all of a sudden I'm dropping things, forgetting important information, can't speak clear or loud enough, and overall just making a real donkey of myself. Which is unfortunate because I would like to make my way up in the company, but I'm fearful I've made myself look like a fool. The thing is, I have no issues with my boss or any of the upper management. They're great, non-judgmental, and never give me any crap. But for some reason, because they are authority, all of a sudden I become the world's dumbest employee. It's not just at work either, it's when I talk to strangers too. I have a decent range in my vocabulary and can speak fluently around people I know. However, around strangers, I stutter really bad and vocabulary gets cut in half. Why am I like this? I'm a 28-year-old guy and feel like an idiot in public. Can you relate? I can relate to OP more than maybe OP can imagine. Here's the thing, I go on here and read Reddit stories every single day. Thousands and thousands of stories, and I add a post commentary story or chat to every single one, and I still find myself, because the pressure is on and I have to deliver, fumbling over my words, stumbling, realizing I'm running myself into a dead end and have nowhere to go with what I'm saying. I mean, bless all of you guys that keep sticking with me when my post-story comments are probably super choppy, because I have to try to patch together my thoughts to make it make sense. And another quick example, as I said before, I love basketball. I'm pretty decent at it, and especially so whenever I'm playing with my own sibling, but there were times even back in like high school where gym class would just have an impromptu game, and I would be so nervous that I would get a rebound and just bobble the ball out of bounds. Like, people would look at me and probably think like I'm the most uncoordinated person in existence, when at least I feel like it's far from the truth. Captain Lollygag commented, absolutely I can relate. And I bet anyone else with an anxiety disorder, however mild, can relate to this too. Anytime I hear the question, "So what have you been up to lately?" It's like a magic eraser button and I have no idea what to talk about, so I chuckle and tell the asker that they just wiped my memory, please give me a minute to reload. I am a lot less anxious than I used to be and nowadays don't make as many dumb mistakes when people are hovering. That may happen over time with you too, but for me that's due to years of therapy with a professional and on my own, and the benefit of menopause taking away the last of the freaks I had to give towards looking a certain way for others, which is why I can make jokes about suddenly forgetting how to speak English. And it's why I no longer care if someone doesn't believe I've been disabled for almost 20 years when I used to go into anxious mode over that. In fact, I like to make up idiotic things to answer the inevitable, "But what do you do all day?" I farm sardines. I run a conspiracy organization that believes the idea of conspiracies is a conspiracy. I make wedding dresses for cats. It's a lucrative market. If you can, try considering ridiculous things. That may help with the short-circuiting when talking with others. You don't necessarily have to voice these ridiculous things, but be thinking about them as a way to soothe your mind while you're talking. It works the same way as telling nervous performers to picture their audience naked. It's not the nakedness, it's the distraction of the absurd that keeps you from noticing that you're supposed to be anxious. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear some more hard-hitting questions, why not check out an Am I the Jerk on the left? Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.